Ho ho, looks like I've caught another one. That's right, not only is this video blatant clickbait, but I stole the same joke from the introduction of the panda video. With all that out the way, I would like to state for the record that nobody is coming to take your cat away, especially me. After all, would somebody with merchandise of his own cat really be coming after your cat? The purpose of this video isn't to convince you to get rid of your little guys. It's not like I could even if I wanted to. No, this video's purpose is simply to remind you that if you own a cat, you are harbouring a stone-cold, ruthless killer. If you are a cat owner, this statement will not be a big surprise. I'm sure many of you have woken up in the middle of the night to some kind of small animal desperately clinging to the mortal coil while your bloodthirsty monstrosity called Mittens looks at you in the same way a disappointed father looks at his overweight son on sports day. While this hunting behaviour is annoying at the time, most of us just sort of accept that cats are animals and we have to put up with the casual murder. In exchange, they give us dopamine and Twitter followers. This is technically true. Cats are natural carnivores and hunting small animals is just what they are hardwired to do. Problems start to arise when we humans decided we really like cats, and unleashed millions of non-native predators into almost every ecosystem on the planet. Thanks to us humans, there are roughly 600 million individual cats across the globe, which if you really think about it, is a lot of cats. In fact, it's so many cats that if you condense them into a cat sphere, it would stand 40 meters taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza, or approximately 0.02% the length of Wales. In reality, cats are not a sphere, but many individuals that do a lot of hunting. But how much murder do cats exactly do? Most countries don't record the cat murder rate, but in the few countries that do, we can see that they are very busy. In the US alone, free-ranging domestic cats kill 1.3 to 4 billion birds and 6.3 to 22.2 billion mammals annually, with roughly 69% of these kills being committed by unowned feral cats. Considering there are roughly 50 million feral cats in the US and the average lifespan is 2 years, this means that American cats have a KD ratio of 1040, which is pretty impressive. While cats certainly aren't helping the native wildlife of the US, they aren't having as large an impact compared to other, more isolated countries. Places like Australia, New Zealand and other Pacific islands have a much larger problem with cats, mostly because their native wildlife has lived in isolation on an island for millions of years and has forgotten to run away from things that want to eat it. You can see how this might be a problem when you introduce a predator that kills things even when it's in the middle of eating another prey item. Across the Pacific, from Hawaii to New Zealand, there are countless cases of cats driving native, useless animals into extinction, and it's estimated that they have contributed to 26% of all mammal, bird and reptile extinctions across the globe since the 1600s. But what can we actually do about these rampaging, fluffy killers? Places like Australia and New Zealand already have programs and schemes in place to keep the populations in check, but these mostly involve either culling feral populations or neutering any cats they can get their hands on. These aren't useless schemes by any means, as feral cats do hunt far more than domestic cats, but as we have previously established, there are a lot of cats in the world, and pet cats live at much higher densities than their feral counterparts. In fact, the predation rate per square kilometre in a residential area is 28 to 52 times larger than feral cats in natural environments. So unfortunately, we can't just pin this all on feral cats. If you value native wildlife, which you should do for many reasons, then this is a bit of a problem, and the solutions aren't very popular. As you could imagine, when you start talking about cat management strategies, people get images of Orwellian government cat acquisition squads kicking down doors and confiscating illegal cats from defenceless citizens. But this isn't really what's being suggested. The idea of blanket bans or restrictions on cat ownership are likely to be resisted, and quite frankly they're political suicide for whatever unfortunate party implements the policy. Instead, conservationist groups and vets have established that the best way to stop predation is simply to keep your cat indoors. This might seem like a no-brainer, but it's a bit more difficult than it first appears. In places like Australia, where people are a bit more aware of the negative impacts from cats, there is more public acceptance for preventative measures. For example, in Victoria, 53% of cat owners keep their cats indoors and do not allow roaming. In reality, this number is probably lower, people do like to lie on surveys. While it's easier to convince cat owners to keep their cats indoors in places like Australia, with visible impacts on wildlife, things start to break down when you look at less cat-conscious countries such as the UK. A 2020 study investigated the opinions of cat owners in the UK and found some very interesting results, as well as producing some of the best figures I've ever seen in a study. 5 schools of thoughts emerged from the cat owner surveys, all with different views about their cats and how they should act. The concerned protectors worried about their cats being lost, stolen or killed and kept their cats indoors for their own safety. They didn't really have strong opinions on hunting behaviour and wouldn't keep their cat indoors to stop them hunting. Freedom defenders think their cats should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and any restrictions on cat access to the outdoors is tyranny and should be opposed at all costs. Tolerant guardians think the benefits from roaming outweigh the risks, and while they don't like hunting, they just sort of think it's something that cats do, and there isn't really any way to stop them. Conscientious caretakers really don't like hunting, and are very worried about the wildlife being harmed. They think owners have some responsibility to manage their cat's behaviour. Finally, we have the laissez-faire landlords. These guys think a cat's gotta do what a cat's gotta do. They've never really thought about the effects of cats on wildlife, but might do something if their cat was killing things all of the time. As you can see, there is a wide range of opinions among cat owners, but all 5 groups disagree with keeping their cats indoors solely to stop them hunting, which is a bit of a problem when that's the whole point of keeping them indoors from a conservation standpoint. However, everybody but the freedom defenders agree that cat hunting isn't great, suggesting that if you give people the right arguments, some might start keeping their cats indoors. There is certainly a long way to go in the countries outside the Pacific when it comes to keeping cats indoors, but there are other genuinely good reasons to keep your cats indoors more, completely ignoring the wildlife impacts. In a survey of over 1,000 practicing or retired veterinarians in British Columbia, 79% recommended that clients keep their cats indoors, not to stop hunting, but for the health and safety of their cat. The number 1 cause of mortality among cats attending veterinary practices is trauma-related, either from vehicles or animal attacks, especially in areas with larger native predators such as coyotes. Cats allowed to roam are also much more likely to pick up particularly nasty parasites like toxoplasmosis and roundworm, which they get from hunting smaller animals. If you live in an area with large predators, basically anywhere in the US, or in an area with lots of traffic, then you might want to consider keeping your cats indoors at least at night. This is also when cat hunting is at its peak, so not only do you protect your cats, but also the little guys outside. Well, there we have it then. Hopefully you learned the extent of our furry killer's bloodlust and might take some form of preventative action, even if it's just putting a collar with a little bell on it to give any little critters a head start. I'm curious to know where you guys fall on the cat owner scale. Are you a hardcore cats' right activist like the freedom defenders, or are you more worried about the native wildlife populations like the conscientious caretakers? Why don't you let me know in the comments. Apart from that, do the usual, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon and all that jazz. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.